Dale Earnhardt Jr. just fired a shot heard around NASCAR, and it's shaking the sport from the boardrooms to pit road. This isn't just another casual opinion from a legend. This is a full-blown challenge to NASCAR's leadership and to the way it runs its business. Because what started as a quiet legal disagreement has now exploded into one of the most intense battles NASCAR has ever faced. And Dale Jr., he just peeled back the curtain on what might be the sport's biggest power struggle in decades. Let's rewind the clock. In 2016, NASCAR launched what it called the charter system, a revolutionary idea at the time. It gave certain race teams a guaranteed spot in every Cup Series event, like owning a permanent seat at the table. The goal was simple: stability, value, and long-term growth. Before that, teams lived race to race, sponsor to sponsor, never knowing if they'd make the next grid. The charter was supposed to change all that. It gave teams equity, something they could sell, something that would finally appreciate in value. And it worked. At first. Teams like Michael Jordan's 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports say the system has become a tool of control, one that locks teams out of real decision-making power. They say NASCAR keeps too much information secret, dictates the terms, and treats independent owners like employees instead of partners. So, they sued, and that lawsuit has dragged the sport into a fight that's as much about power as it is about money. Now, just weeks before the case was set to go to court, NASCAR dropped a headline-grabbing announcement. "We're open to settlement. We'd like a judge-appointed mediator to help both sides reach common ground." Sounds diplomatic, right? Sounds like progress. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. saw right through it, and he didn't hold back. On his podcast, The Dale Jr. Download, he called it exactly what he thought it was: a show. By the way, we do want a settlement. Not that we think one's going to happen, but we just want people to know we're not against it. That single line hit NASCAR like a thunderclap. Dale Jr. wasn't just questioning their sincerity, he was accusing them of performing for the public. In his eyes, NASCAR doesn't want peace, it wants optics. It wants to look like the reasonable adult in the room while quietly working to keep full control of the system. That's the kind of statement that makes headlines and enemies. Because when Dale Jr. talks, people listen. He's not just a retired driver, he's NASCAR royalty, the son of Dale Earnhardt Sr., one of the sport's most iconic figures, a commentator, team owner, and fan favorite. He's the bridge between old-school grit and modern NASCAR politics. So when he says NASCAR's move feels fake, it sends shockwaves through the garage. And the evidence backs him up, because not long after that open to settlement announcement, NASCAR quietly filed for summary judgment, a legal maneuver that asks the court to dismiss the case before it ever reaches trial. Think about that. On one hand, they're saying, let's find common ground. On the other, they're telling the judge, don't even give this case a chance. That's not negotiation, that's contradiction. And they didn't stop there. NASCAR packed their court filing with statements from other team owners praising the current system, making it look like only a few troublemakers were unhappy. That's smart strategy, divide and control. But to outsiders, and especially to Dale Jr., it looks like manipulation. And then came the next bombshell. Just as things were heating up, NASCAR made a surprising request. They wanted to replace the mediator. The person in question, Jeffrey Mishkin, a former NBA executive and one of the most respected names in sports law, had been working on this case for months. He knew every detail, every argument, every tension point. So why replace him now? That's what 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports wanted to know. Their response to NASCAR's move was scathing. Mr. Mishkin has invested significant time understanding this case and meeting with the parties. And then came the dagger: NASCAR just doesn't like the diagnosis, so they're out looking for a second opinion. That's the kind of accusation that turns a dispute into a war. Because replacing a mediator isn't just a procedural move. It's a signal that someone doesn't like the direction things are heading. And once again, Dale Jr. called it out, not directly, but through his tone, his words, and his timing. He made it clear, this doesn't look like a company seeking peace. It looks like a company trying to reset the game in its favor. Now, let's be clear. This isn't just legal drama. This is the future of NASCAR's entire business model on the line. The charter system, for all its promise, has created a quiet class war inside the sport. Smaller teams without charters are locked out. Charter teams have security but little leverage. And NASCAR, sitting at the top, controls nearly every lever that matters: TV deals, purse distributions, and long-term planning. Teams like 23XI argue that they've poured millions into the sport and deserve transparency, a real say in how it's run. NASCAR argues it's protecting competitive balance and the integrity of the brand. Both sides think they're fighting for NASCAR's future, but only one side gets to write the rulebook. And as Dale Jr. pointed out, the one with the rulebook always has the advantage. But there's more. Behind the legal firestorm is a cultural one. NASCAR isn't just a business, it's a legacy, a symbol of American motorsport. And for fans, seeing Michael Jordan, one of the biggest icons in sports history, clash with NASCAR's leadership is surreal. Jordan's 23XI racing has already shaken up the sport with drivers like Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. They're bringing new sponsors, new audiences, and new energy. But if even they feel locked out by the system, what does that say for everyone else? And that's where Dale Jr. shines. He's not a plaintiff, not a lawyer, not even directly involved. But his voice carries weight. He's the conscience of the fan base, the middleman between NASCAR's corporate machine and the people who fill the stands every weekend. When he says NASCAR is playing the PR game instead of solving real problems, it cuts deep because fans feel it. They've seen this movie before: big promises, small changes. If this case goes to trial, and that's still a big if, the consequences could ripple across every major sport. If 23XI and Front Row win, it could redefine ownership structures not just in NASCAR, but in other leagues that operate under tight central control. It could mean more power for teams, more transparency, and more balance in the business of racing. But if NASCAR wins, the old system holds, stronger than ever. Teams will know exactly where they stand, and the message will be clear: challenge the establishment, and the establishment fights back. The next critical moment lands on October 21st, when the judge rules on NASCAR's motion for summary judgment. If it passes, this case ends quietly. No trial, no testimony, no fireworks. But if it fails, everything goes public. Every document, every email, every negotiation laid bare for the world to see. That's when the real fireworks begin. And that's what Dale Jr. seems to be warning us about. He's telling fans, don't look away, because this isn't just another off-track story. This could decide who controls the future of NASCAR, the teams, or the tower. The irony? Dale Jr. doesn't need to be in the fight to make an impact. He already has. His voice has shifted the spotlight. He's turned a legal footnote into a national conversation about fairness, transparency, and the soul of racing. The court case might be about charters, but the real trial, it's about trust. So now, NASCAR faces a choice. Will it double down on control or open the door to real partnership with the teams that make the sport possible? Whatever happens, one thing's for sure: the world is watching, the fans are paying attention, and thanks to Dale Earnhardt Jr., the silence has been broken. So, what do you think? Is NASCAR trying to protect its brand or just its power? And if Dale Jr. is right, are we about to witness the biggest transformation in modern racing history? Drop your thoughts below, because this story isn't slowing down anytime soon. Buckle up. The next lap might just change the sport forever.